models we can get out there and all types of diversity, the absolute better for the rest of us. So, yeah.
And I also believe that for women, they would like to hear good things about it.
Yeah.
And once they hear positive things, they feel like, okay, I can do it as well.
Yeah.
I also give an example of, for example, when we are buying a dress, we always like to send the photo to others and see if they like it too, even though we like it.
Yeah.
So we want to hear that people approve us as well, to be able to make a step and be sure that we are committed to it. And well, both of you being in the diverse world, if you can say one or two things too, what are the common mistakes do you think that companies are currently doing in terms of hiring diversity?
I don't know, I think there needs to be an equal focus on inclusion. So diversity is one thing, but inclusion really is the key. That's the magic, because we're all different, right? Even if some of us look the same, we are different. We're all individually different, and really the challenge for organisations is how can we create truly inclusive cultures that support us at all the different stages of our lives. I think it can be difficult, and I find some organisations in Ireland can be quite conservative depending on what industry they're in, and it can be quite difficult sometimes for them to start the difficult conversation, right, whether it be around culture or sexuality or whatever, and like I've had senior leaders say to me, look, we have an open door policy in this company, why aren't people coming in and having a conversation with me? And I think it needs to be about creating a space for people to get it wrong. Like I remember a CEO that I was working with one time, I was part of the company, and she said, I've never met an LGBT person. We'd started up, there was a startup LGBT group, and she goes, I never met an LGBT person. And then she went, well, maybe I have, and I just never asked. And it was this realization. And then she started working with the group, and she was the biggest champion. And they now have buses and everything at Pride, and but for her, she then talked to us about it, and she was going, look, I didn't want to get it wrong. I didn't want to say the wrong thing, so I just completely avoided the conversation. And I think it's exactly the same around culture as well, and being women. Like I've had, men come to me and go, what the bloody hell, PC has gone mad, do I open the door, do I not, what do I do, and it can be very difficult for all of us, right, and what I say is, be brave, ask the bloody question, get it wrong, ask, am I saying it right, should I open the door, should I not, just be human, bring a little bit more, and I think that's what organisations can, and what that takes is brave senior leaders supporting grassroots and creating a space for getting it wrong. So I think that's what we need to be doing.
Can I ask a random question? So I suppose the thing is, at the moment there is this kind of other side of it when you're trying to make more inclusive workplaces, okay? Which is the white male, usually the young white male, is very threatened by that. And they don't understand that us creating an inclusive workplace also includes for them. So I know that the white male is not one person. I know that there's a kid who's from Swords who is, a bit different, doesn't play rugby and everything else, and I'm trying to make it an inclusive place for him. And so it's a weird kind of minefield. And I suppose my question is, like, what do we do about that? Because, like, as in, there's some people, if I just say the words diversity and inclusion, they get angry. Anyway, like, it's just like, or there is this, for the younger generation, there is this leading psychologist that has a cult following called Jordan Peterson, who has made diversity and inclusion part of some conspiracy theory that we're all heading towards communism. And so, but as in, no, it's actually not funny, because they really believe this. These are really educated young boys who are, he just did a show in Dublin that packed, as in, he's a psychologist, it packed out, sold out, it was €60 ticket. These are young men who are going to these shows and who are literally thinking this way. And so, obviously, I know that's not true, and the anger that comes with it when you say diversity and inclusion, like, but this is the thing. I want to make. How do we make it a thing where it's not threatening, where it's not, you can't make them afraid? Like, how do you do that, you know?
There's a few things in that. I don't have the answer, but I'll give you a couple of pointers, right? I suppose, you know, I would have worked on a workshop with the 30% Club for focusing on engaging men in gender diversity. And why did we do that? Why a program for men? And it really is around privilege, right? And it's around the privilege group. And I describe that as you say to the fish in the fishbowl, how's the water? And they go, what water? Right? That's privilege. So the workshop really was looking at stereotypes. So where did it come from? Into privilege, so recognising your privilege. Like I recognise my privilege, I'm white, I'm Irish, I live in a free world, I have access to education. It's about bringing it back to that human level. And I think when you focus on diversity and inclusion, that white male that you described there, and I'm generalising, they don't feel like they fit into that category. They're not diverse. They don't need to be included, they're fine. And the reason is because within their fishbowl, they are included. They're in the water with the other ones in the fish, and you're trying to mess that up, you know. So it's very complex. It's very difficult. With the workshop, we moved then into unconscious bias, and how deadly that can be around our decision making, particularly in the workplace.
Jordan Peterson has decided that's all a conspiracy. It doesn't work, and so I hate that too.
You know, and that's the thing. Like you're always going to have, you know, like, and I can't comment on where he's coming from or what he's doing. I think. You know, I think we have to have empathy and compassion, and like I'll tell you a story about, I was asked to go out and speak to a group of staff, it was earlier this year at one of our hospices, and there was a man in there, he identified as a trans man, and he was dying, he was at the last days of his life, and he wanted to dress as female. And one of the members of staff, who's given up 30 years of her life as a vocation to work with people at the end of their lives, refused because it was against her religion. That's, you know, so the organisation is going, what the bloody hell do we do here? You know, so we have this man, this is his last wish. We have this woman who has dedicated her whole life and believes that she's committing a sin if she supports this man in what he wants. Like, where do you come at? You know, so the conversation we had, it was a lunch and learn over at a staff session, and we talked about tolerance and respect and dignity, and kind of just trying to get it down to human empathy. And for me, it was as important that the people in the room had empathy and understanding for that woman who'd given up 30 years of her life, as well as for the man who's at the end of his life, and this was his final wishes. And it's very difficult. There's no one policy practice there, you know, and like you'll probably find that those white males there in that, you know, what happens to them is then they get married, they have kids and they have daughters, and now all of a sudden their daughter's being discriminated against in the tech industry, and they're the ones I'm dealing with, and you know, and they're saying, like I had a man the other day, he said, I have 2 daughters, my wife works in tech, she's a senior leader, and I have 2 daughters, and I don't want them to experience the world that she's in. And he's in the fishbowl. So you don't know what it is. Sometimes it could be an acquired disability. 75% of disabilities are acquired throughout our lives. You just don't know what's going to happen, and you can't bring everybody along. I think what we can do as organisations is try and mitigate against people being disrespectful to each other, okay, and try and promote tolerance and be seen as the person who is tolerant. And sometimes that's very difficult, particularly if you're up against somebody who's, you know, being disrespectful. But it's, you know, you have to kind of be true to yourself in that. And you have a choice to take yourself out of that then as well. But look, I know it's not the answer, right? And this is a world problem, and I think all we can control really is ourselves, and you know, sometimes being brave and having to push through that. And you can't change people's minds if that's the mindset. But last point is, when diversity and inclusion is not enough, if you start from stereotypes and move into privilege, because when you start having the conversation about privilege, if you can crack that, people get unconscious bias and they get diversity and inclusion.
So can I just say congratulations to DCU. I know it was a very young trans man who wanted to change the accommodation arrangements in the Centre for Talent to summer programme. Now he did state what he wanted very clearly. He didn't get what he wanted, but the
Yeah.
second person that went in got it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was all done as a surprise, so when they were allocated their accommodation,
Very good. Yeah.
and it was only when they went to the accommodation they realised that the second trans man that he was in the
Yeah.
male corridor.